Hi everybody, my name is Jessica and I work here at Natural Resources. I'm here at Muscle Shoals Reservation at the Old First Quarters Trail. And it is officially spring, which means it's kind of raining. And there's also a lot of wildflowers. I love wildflowers, but I'm an amateur. So I am here with botanist David Webb. And we are gonna look at some wildflowers and tell you all about it. Come on with me.
The little small plant that you see here along just above the leaves, this is one of the chickweeds. If you have a lawn, you probably have a chickweed in your lawn, but that is an introduced one. It's not native. This is one of our native chickweeds. And when you look at if I were to ask you how many petals does it have, if you were to count them, more than likely you would tell me 10. But actually, if you look very closely, each petal is incised. So actually there's only 5 petals, but they have a very deep notch in them, so it appears as if there's 10 petals, whereas actually there's only 5. The plant that you're looking at here, the genus is Trillium. This is the wake robin Trillium. And from the name Tri, you get an idea of why it's named that. When you look at trilliums, they're fairly distinctive from the standpoint that the leaves and the flower parts are in threes. You have 3 leaves, 3 sepals, 3 petals. The stamens are probably 6. They're a multiple of 3, and then there's 3 pistils. So it's pretty easy to recognize a trillium, and you can see where it gets that common name. This is the second species of Trillium that we have in the First Quarters Ravine. This one is called Twisted Trillium, and it gets its name from the fact that the petals twist, as you can see here. Again, as is the case with all the Trilliums, you have 3 leaves, 3 sepals, 3 petals, 6 stamens, and then there are 3 pistils. Another common name I've heard it referred to is airplane Trillium, because with the twist in the petals, it's like an airplane propeller. The seeds of Trillium has a little fat-like structure on the seeds that the ants like. So ants are one of the dispersal mechanisms for Trilliums, and they will collect those seeds and carry it to their ant hills, and they'll eat the little fat appendage off of the seeds, and then they discard the seeds around the ant hill. So a lot of times you will see Trilliums in clumps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
This is another common wildflower that you see in the woods in this area of Alabama. This belongs to the genus Phlox. The common name is Sweet William. It's interesting that there are 5 petals, which you can see here, but the lower part of the petals are fused into a long tube. And then, so the insects that pollinate it, there's nectar down at the base of the flower there, and the pollinators would be things that would have a long tongue or a proboscis, where they would, to get the nectar, they get into the top part of the flower, and they function as a pollinator. This is one of our very nice wildflowers. This is Jacob's ladder. It has little lavender blue flowers, and when they're good and open, they're sort of, I guess they would be maybe a little bit whitish on the inside. The common name Jacob's ladder derives from the fact that the leaves are pinnately compound, and these are the leaflets, and the arrangement on the petiole, they look like a ladder. This wildflower is known as Toothwort. It has several little white flowers with 4 petals on a stalk. frequently those petals will turn pinkish as they age. The common name toothwort comes from some underground parts. If you were to dig this up, it has little ivory colored tooth-like tubercles that look like a tooth, and it goes back to something called the doctrine of signatures. At one time, people thought that if a plant part resembled a human body part, that it would be, you could treat medicinally, you could use it to treat toothaches and that sort of thing. Another wildflower that's quite common in the woods in North Alabama is rue anemone, and you can see it has these white, most people would say petals. Actually, these are the sepals. In most plants, the sepals are green, but in this plant, it actually doesn't have petals. So what you're looking at are white sepals. There are 6 to maybe 12 of these white sepals. Also, the foliage, some people have said the foliage looks like duck's feet, and the foliage is whorled. It comes off at the top, and as we go down the ravine, we'll look at the false rue anemone. This is the false rue anemone, and it's a nice big patch on this hillside here. And when you look at the foliage, and it resembles the rue anemone. But one of the differences, the easiest characteristic to distinguish the two is that the sepals, again, it does not have petals. These white structures are sepals. When the flower is open, there will be 5 in the false rue anemone. If you look at this, it's a taller plant. The stems are more elongated than they are with the rue anemone. Stemless ones just have a rhizome like that, and the leaves and the flowers just come off of that rhizome. These, if you look at them carefully, see they have a stem. That, you know, it probably does have a rhizome, but the stem comes up, and they're the flowers. Whereas on the stemless ones,
they just kind of
they don't have a stalk.
Huh.
And most of the stemless ones are blue, and they're very difficult to separate species. So I just generally call them stemless blue violets. This is another one of our common woodland wildflowers. This one is mayapple. Some of the plants only have 1 leaf, and then you'll see there's some that have 2 leaves. The stem comes up, there's a fork, and there's 2 leaves. If you look at the ones that have 2 leaves, in the center you see a little stalk, and it's not open. This is the immature flower. So later on it will open up. Mayaples are the plant parts, and especially the rhizome has alkaloids in it, so it is poisonous. In the past, it was collected and sold medicinally. They would, I guess, process the plants for the alkaloids. We have a nice colony of Dutchmans Britches here. It's mixed in with the false rue anemone. As you can see, in Dutchmans Britches, you have a flowering stalk, and then you have several flowers. It looks like most of them have 7 or 8 flowers. Each flower has a spur, and it looks like a pair of pants or pantaloons hanging on a clothesline. So you get the name Dutchmans Britches. In northern Alabama, we're right on the southern edge of the range. So if you want to see Dutchmans Britches in Alabama, you have to be in these counties on the northern part of the state. It's fairly common up in Tennessee and some other areas, but this is a relatively rare plant in Alabama. Okay, we're on the bluffs along the river at First Quarters Ravine, and there are 2 or 3 plants that just seem to like, or they do just like these rock bluffs. One is so-called alum root. This one is called maple leaf alum root. The reason it gets the common name is that the leaf looks a lot like a maple leaf. Apparently, it was used medicinally. The Native Americans ground up the rhizomes and the stems and used it to treat sores and that sort of thing. The other plant we have here on these is called saxifrage. I guess I just commonly call it rock saxifrage because I generally see it on rocks. That's just a name I made up, but it has this panicle of little tiny white flowers, and then all the leaves are clustered right at the base, and they call that a rosette. Another plant that you commonly see on the bluffs is just not quite in flower is Phacelia. And here the little flower buds, probably another week or 10 days it will flower. The flowers are going to be blue lavender, saucer shaped. Some people call it scorpion weed because the inflorescence at the tip is sort of curved like the stinger on a scorpion. So these are 3 plants that if you want to see them, the greatest abundance is right here along the bluffs.
And as a general rule, unlawful to remove plants and flowers from federal property.